Okay, now here's a Super Nintendo cartridge. Unfortunately, although I have more Super Nintendo games than I have Nintendo games, I don't have a wide array of the different hardware used in Nintendo games, the Super Nintendo games. And a big change from the Super NES from the NES, besides going from 8-bit to the 16-bit processor, was they wanted to make sure that the games weren't going to be limited by the hardware that was built into the console. And this foresight caused the Super NES to be popular up into the 32-bit era, into the Nintendo 64's lifespan. So what they did for these games is that they allowed, like how the NES games had extra memory controllers, MMC 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Actually, that was all there was. But these ones had extra processors. Unfortunately, I don't have an example of one of those processors, but a couple of good examples would be like Star Fox, which allowed for a second processor that was used as a pseudo graphics processing unit. So it was able to load three-dimensional polygons onto RAM during gameplay. Super Mario World 2 allowed for extra layering, so more so you had more detailed backgrounds and parallax. So this is one of the more simpler Super NES games. There's no extra processor, just a ROM chip, and whatever the hell that is. Now this one is one of the more complicated. This is one of the Donkey Kong games. And again, it uses that volatile memory with a battery. Also still works after 20 plus years. So yeah, these games don't use a lot of power to keep their saved games available. But unfortunately, yes, this doesn't have an additional processor on it. I'd like to show you that. They also have different prongs on them instead of the pure copper ones of the NES, so they're less prone to tarnishing. Oh, and don't clean your NES games with alcohol. I mean, there's alcohol included in like a Nintendo 64 cleaning kit, but that's because the connectors are very different on a Super Nintendo or Nintendo 64 than they were on NES. They corrected some of the design flaws, which I'll go over in another video in this series, one going over the Nintendo Entertainment System console. So yeah, there are specifically designed Nintendo Entertainment System cleaning kits out there. If you want to try to spruce up your NES to get it to work a little more reliably, I suggest procuring one of them. Now, in addition to my Super NES games, I have one game that I can't normally play on my Super NES, but it's a similar format. This is the Japanese Super Famicom game, Clock Tower. The only reason why you can't play it on a Super NES is because if you look at the bottom here, you see the Super NES game has two notches in the casing, where the Super Famicom game does not have those notches. So there's these tabs in the NES and the Super NES that block the Super Famicom games from slipping into the circuit board. So you can remove those tabs, or do what I did and just remove the casing. Again, this is a very beautifully rendered game for a 16-bit game. It's unfortunate I can't read Japanese. I tried playing it, and I mean, it's a game I'd love to experience. I need to find a good emulator for it. I found other emulators, and I've used DOSBox, but I haven't been able to find a good Super NES emulator, because I know that there are translated versions of this game out there, and so if anyone wants to direct me to one, I'd appreciate it. Okay, here's a little update. After I recorded this video, I got to thinking about my problems with the emulator I've been using, and I went back and tried it again, and I discovered the reason why nothing was working is because of the way I was using the mouse. Now, an emulator has its own interface controls, and I forgot about that when I was using this one, because an emulator is its own operating system environment. It's a simulated operating system environment. So I use my mouse in left-handed mode. So my mouse buttons are switched. However, the mouse buttons aren't switched when you're in the emulator. So all my right clicking was having no effect. And once I tried using the other mouse button, everything worked fine. So stupid me. No! Sure. Okay. So yeah, this is a Super Famicom game. Again, it has another battery. It's a little more complicated